Selamat siang. Welcome back to another Bali COVID-19 update. This is January 9th, 2022, and my name is Bruce, and it is a very sunny day. The humidity is 69%, and the temperature is 31.2 degrees Celsius, and wind is at 0 right here. Okay, and that's the weather. The two main stories today have nothing to do with COVID-19, thank goodness. Well, not a little bit to do with COVID-19. They're both about Bali. The first one is Ogoh-Ogohs are going to be back, and the second is the mythical Bali Airport. Start of the year, it's still the start of the year for me. And yeah, there's no really terrible news right now here in Indonesia, and so I'm going to be positive today because, well, it's a nice day, and I'm getting ready to do a nasi goreng cooking video in just about an hour with my wife. So let's go into the two main segments for today, and then we'll get on with the numbers. So what about this airport? I don't know. And Ogoh-Ogoh's good. I'm really looking forward to it. I hope that it stays that way until March 3rd when Nyepi comes. Back on the roof today, and it is, wow, it's pretty lovely actually. Well, out towards the sea. Up towards the mountains is cloudy and could be rain. But we'll take a look at this and see what it looks like. Okay, first good news here for culture lovers of all nationalities. Art creativity appreciation, making an Ogoh-Ogoh parade can be done. Okay, we haven't had Ogoh-Ogohs in a while, not last year, I think it's been 2 years now. So, as a form of appreciation for the artistic creativity of Bali's young generation in the making and parade of Ogoh-Ogoh, the provincial government of Bali's issued a circular regarding the making and parading of the Ogoh-Ogoh welcoming Nyepi. According to Pak Suwarmoan from the Bulang COVID-19 task force, he said that because of the decreasing numbers in Bali in general and in Bulang in particular, they are going to allow making Ogoh-Ogoh and parading them this year. However, people will have to people will have to abide by the COVID-19 rules, the health and safety protocols. But they're going to be able to make Ogoh-Ogoh and parade them. My granddaughter is going to be so thrilled. He said, "We urge the public in the implementation of the Ogoh-Ogoh later to strictly adhere to health protocols." So, good news. Maybe we're going to have a holiday after all that we can celebrate. Because we missed Christmas, we missed New Year's. Chinese New Year's is coming up, and I don't know, it's probably going to be canceled as well. So if we get to have Nyepi, that will give people a big cultural boost, a big psychological boost to be able to have Nyepi again. And more Bali news, and this one, wow, I don't know. What's happening with this? This is about the mythical North Bali Airport. It's back in the news again, but it's been moved to the other side of the island again. This is just incredible. So, short history. They've been talking about the North Bali Airport for almost as long as I've been here. Well, not that long, but I don't know, at least 20 years. And the idea was to bring tourists up here so that there would be a spreading of the tourists, and especially the tourist bucks, up into North Bali. Although, of course, we don't have some of the stuff that people want down in the south, like white sand beaches and surf. But there's a lot of stuff to offer people here, as long as you like black sand. There's snorkeling, there's coral reef, the bars and all that stuff. There are bars here, there are restaurants. There's really nice places to stay. A lot of cultural activities here. I don't know why I'm trying to sell North Bali. I like not having anybody up here. But the idea was to have the airport and do that, because a lot of people just don't want to do the drive over the mountains. Now they put the shortcut there, and you know, I actually have never been on it yet. But has that brought more people in? Well, I don't know. Once the pandemic's over, we'll find out. But The airport is back in the news again. So, Bali Offshore Airport to be finished by 2024. So this is about the December 29th signing of a memorandum of understanding with China Construction First Group Limited, CCFG, a subsidiary of Chinese state-owned construction firm China State Construction. Okay, so we're going to have Chinese building this here, which means Chinese workers, which means, that's going to be interesting. How's that going to work with the pandemic? Okay, I don't know. Anyway, what about the airport? Designed to accommodate 20 million passengers a year, 20 million? North Bali International Airport is intended to alleviate pressure on Ngurah Rai International Airport as Indonesia's prime tourism gateway, in addition to balancing out tourism between the south and the north. Why are we worried about this now? There's a lot of stuff that we could be spending money on instead of an airport right now, like helping the people that are out of jobs because of the pandemic. So the airport is located about 87 kilometers from Denpasar, and it's going to boast a 3,850 meter runway, enabling it to accommodate even the Airbus A380, the world's largest passenger plane. I thought people were stopping flying those. The offshore airport has been designated as a strategic national project under presidential regulation number 109/2020. It's going to be built in the coastal area of Kubutambahan. What happened? It was going to be built in Kubutambahan before, and well, there was a big land rush. Surprise, surprise, people buying up stuff. And then there were problems, temples, and not being able to find a place to build it. And so they decided to move it over to the west. And there were problems with people living where they wanted to build it, and animal sanctuary, the nature sanctuary over there, the West Bali National Park. And so there were problems there and demonstrations. And so I guess they've decided to move it back to Kubutambahan again. And so construction is supposed to begin soon. You never know here. Well, sometimes this is just, I don't know. Things are so ridiculous sometimes. We'll see what happens. There's been so many stories on the airport, and there's still nada. Okay, and what are the numbers? They're looking good for Bali. 7-day average for new positive cases, 4, still at 4. And 7-day average for deaths, 0.3. So we are staying steady. Okay, good news for us. No signs of the Omicron variant yet. That doesn't mean it's not here. It means we have no signs. And so I'm not going to worry about things that aren't here that I can't do anything about. And what about the count in Indonesia? Well, that's a different story. New positive cases yesterday, 479. So the cases are going up as people expected after the holiday break. And, well, I'll talk a little bit about that in the update and wrap up at the end of the video. Deaths were 6. And what about testing? Total number of individuals tested in Indonesia, 177,701, 0.27 positive rate, and so the positive rate is going up. The 7-day simple positivity rate, 0.20, and Bali testing was not posted yesterday. What about the vaccine numbers? 3,871,500 first dose, 85.7% of the population, and second dose, 3,111,983, 68.9% of the population, and the second dose is not going up much. The first dose, like talked about in the last video, you've got the kiddies involved in that, and so that's why we shot way up there. And yesterday, 5,071 additional doses were administered in Bali. And what about the Bali numbers yesterday? 6 new cases and 0 deaths, yes. And the total number of active cases in Bali is 57. So numbers for us are continuing to look good. Numbers in Indonesia are going up. And as I'm going to mention at the end of the video, people expect them to go up even more. What about those 2 folks from Surabaya who came back to Surabaya from Bali and tested positive? Nusa Dua hotel employees test negative after contact with Omicron patients. And so 11 staff and, well, 1 tourist were tested and placed in isolation after they were believed to come in direct contact with the Omicron patients. According to officials, the Bali COVID-19 task force moved quickly after they heard about this, and they performed PCR tests and put the 11 hotel employees into isolation along with a Russian guest. Why is it always the Russians? The swab results came back negative for these people that were in close contact with the 2 infected patients from Surabaya. According to Bali COVID-19 Task Force Secretary Made Renton, he said all employees will be subject to another round of PCR tests as they leave quarantine. And so, how did those 2 people from Surabaya get that? Is Omicron wandering around here, unknown yet, lurking in the corners? Quite possibly, but we don't know. And some more on Omicron. We say that Omicron is mild, much more mild than Delta, for sure, and that is generally accepted around the world. However, the WHO says calling Omicron mild, a mistake. According to the head of the WHO, record numbers of people are catching Omicron variant, and that means that hospitals are being overwhelmed. He said, while Omicron does appear to be less severe than Delta, especially in those vaccinated, it does not mean it should be categorized as mild. Just like previous variants, he said, it is hospitalizing people and killing people. In fact, the tsunami of cases is so huge and so quick that it's overwhelming hospitals around the world. In the last week, 9.5 million new COVID-19 cases were reported, a record, up 71% from the week before. But according to the WHO chief, even this is an underestimate because it does not reflect a backlog of testing around the Christmas-New Year holiday, positive self-tests not registered, and overburdened surveillance systems, missing cases. And he added the targets are falling short. In his first speech of 2022, he slammed countries, especially the developed countries, who are pigging up the vaccines. Well, he used the word hogged. I like pigging up. He said that the countries that are hogging the vaccines are creating a perfect situation for the spread of the virus. He urged the world to share out vaccine doses more fairly in 2022 to end death and destruction. And the plan was to have every country have 40% of their population vaccinated by the end of 2021. But 92 of the WHO's 194 member states missed the target set for the end of 2021. In fact, 36 had not even given shots to the first 10%. Largely due to being unable to access the vaccine. WHO's target for mid-2022 is to have 70% of everybody in every country in the world vaccinated. He said on the current pace that is not going to happen. Vaccine inequity is a killer of people and jobs, and it undermines a global economic recovery. He added, booster after booster in a small number of countries will not end a pandemic while billions remain completely unprotected. And the WHO's COVID-19 technical lead said it was very unlikely that Omicron would be the last variant of concern before the pandemic is over, and she urged people to take measures to protect themselves against the virus. She said, do everything that we've been advising better, more comprehensively, more purposely. We need people to hang in there and really fight. She also said she was stunned by how sloppily some people were wearing face masks. It needs to cover your nose and mouth. Wearing a mask below your chin is useless, she said. She must have been in Bali. WHO's emergency director, Michael Ryan, said that without vaccine equity, we will be sitting here at the end of 2022 having somewhat the same conversation, which in itself would be a great tragedy. And what about the booster program? Why the government has not set an official tariff? Okay, so I'm recording this on Friday afternoon because, you know, I like to record some early so I don't have to do everything on Sunday when I upload the videos. So we'll see what happens. There will probably be an update on this at the end of this. So no official tariff has been set by the government, according to Health Ministry spokesperson Siti Nadia Tarmizi, who we often talk about. There were social media posts about the tariff, and I was thinking about putting it in the last video, but I didn't because it wasn't official. And she said the tariffs that are currently circulating on social media platforms and on several news outlets do not refer to Indonesia, but rather vaccine rates in other countries. And the vaccine types and doses planned to be administered are still awaiting confirmation and recommendations from experts and research studies and the emergency use authorization from the Food and Drugs Monitoring Agency, BPOM. Booster shots will be prioritized for health workers, elderly population participants of the BPJS Health Contribution Assistance, that's the PBI, which I've talked about before, and people who are immunocompromised. Vaccinations for non-government or independent programs are offered the option to be financed by individuals or business entities and are carried out at state-owned hospitals, and private clinics. And so the rollout is supposed to be on the 12th, so we're going to hear something soon, maybe the 11th, maybe the morning of the 12th, who knows. And the PeduliLindungi app, yes, I found another place in Ngurah Rai where you have to have the PeduliLindungi app, and it was at the bank, and of course I quit carrying my phone around with me because, well, nobody's been asking for the PeduliLindungi app. And so I didn't even think about it. So I go to the bank the other day, the ATM machine is not working. I'm gonna go inside to ask for some money, and the friendly security guard says hello, because he knows me, and he says, can you do your scan? And I said, I didn't bring my phone. I didn't know anybody was doing this except the museum. He said, oh yeah, we're doing it. Everybody's gotta do it. I said, well, okay. Well, I didn't have it. He said, I'm sorry, I can't let you in. And, well, he said, let's check at the ATM again. And he did, and magically it started working. So, okay. And what, long story to lead into this. What about the ATM? Government continues to fix errors in PeduliLindungi app, KSP. And there's an ant on me. The Presidential Staff Office, KSP, has emphasized that the government is continuing to work on revamping the PL app, which has been evaluated as less than optimal. No kidding, a lot of people having problems with it. Not me, I've only used it once. According to KSP expert officer Abraham Wiratomo, the app is not only intended to prevent COVID-19 positive people from moving outside their home, okay, keep an eye on them, but also to make it easier for the government to inform citizens who may not be aware of their proximity to COVID-19 positive people. I didn't know that they were doing that. That's interesting. Based on monitoring and evaluation by the KSP expert team, the use of PeduliLindungi in regions has been found less than optimal, according to Pak Wiratomo. No kidding, everybody knows that. And, well, it's because there's several technical problems that still exist with PeduliLindungi app, not just that, especially in areas with limited internet access. So there's a problem with, well, if you don't have internet access, and that's why the government is giving out free internet in a lot of places. But the app has just not been working very well. And people aren't just putting it up. They're not using it. That's just a fact. And I don't know, the government said they're going to punish people that don't do it, but I haven't seen anything about that yet. And so what about the PL app? Well, the availability of users' location information while traveling makes it easier for the government to monitor and detect the mobility of those exposed to COVID-19 over the previous 14 days. According to the Kendai district head, who had a meeting with the KSP about this, what needs to be improved is its assertiveness. It has to be united. If there are public places that are caught not utilizing the PL app, they must be closed, he said. And so is the government going to get tough with people who are not using the app? It remains to be seen. The government is not known for getting tough with people, well, unless they're kicking foreigners out of the country. And as you know, in many places in the world, people skip quarantine. They do runners. Well, we've had plenty of runners here. Here's something. National Police launched monitoring app for people in quarantine. So the National Police Chief launched the Presisi Quarantine Monitoring app at Soekarno-Hatta Airport. And he said it's based on the concept of a working program initiated by the National Police that's focused on predictability, responsibility, transparency, and fairness. The head of Public Relations Division of the National Police, Inspector General Dedi Preseto, said that the launch of the app follows President Jokowi's directive not to provide any dispensations to international travelers regarding the quarantine period. Watch the next segment and see about that. Ow. Okay. You know, I love this. If I'm feeling kind of depressed, all I've got to do is read Indonesian news, and I'm like immediately happy. The launch of the app shows the commitment of the government and the police to mitigate the transmission of the Omicron variant in Indonesia. And what is it supposed to do? It's supposed to keep people from doing a runner. So the Presisi Quarantine Monitoring app shows monitoring data, quarantine statistics, and PCR test results of isolated travelers. The police will install the app's dashboard at each quarantine site and the command center of the National Police Headquarters. All international travelers arriving in Indonesia will be required to download the app onto their smartphone. They will also be asked to scan the barcode at whatever isolation facility they're going to be at. The application will track the position of people placed under quarantine in real time. Thus, if they're outside their isolation areas, an officer will immediately be notified to fetch them. Okay, now this can work if you keep your phone with you, but as people found out, including a couple Indonesians in Korea, and this was back last year, just leave your phone in your room and take off because, well, you're good until they call you. So the whole thing is you're going to have to call them and have them answer their phone. Now, if you call them and they don't answer their phone, then you can figure they're doing a runner. So, will this work? Well, I hope so. Better than the situation that exists right now. What was it? Last video or 2 videos ago, I was talking about people skipping the quarantine. And then, well, last video too was talking about that. Well, in the last video, I was talking about how Pak Jokowi was upset and he wanted this stop. They're going to make this official so that you can have an exemption. Yeah, so that, well, they can explain it when big shots get exempted. Indonesia exempts quarantine for people under urgent circumstances. According to Circular Number 1, 2020 on health protocols for overseas travel during the COVID-19 pandemic, it includes, among others, dispensations from coronavirus quarantine for certain groups of people under urgent circumstances. What are those urgent circumstances? Medical conditions that are life-threatening or requiring special needs, as well as circumstances of grief, such as the death of family members. Quarantine dispensation can also be given to foreign nationals, but you need to be a leader of the country, representative leader, holder of a diplomatic or work visa from ministry-level institutions or above, visitors arriving under the TCA, Travel Corridor Arrangement Scheme, delegates of G20 members, and respectable members of international societies. Policy took effect on January 7th, and it will be interesting to see how this works in conjunction with the next segment, which is on Umrah. And good news for Muslims in Indonesia. Indonesia to resume Umrah pilgrimage travel starting January 8th. The Director General of Hajj and Umrah at the Ministry of Religious Affairs, Hilman Latif, announced that the government would reopen Umrah trips for Indonesian pilgrims starting this weekend, January 8th, so it's already started. This decision was taken after a cross-ministerial and institutional meeting which was held on January 3rd. Other than tightening the predetermined health protocols, the government will also prioritize the departure using direct flights through the Soekarno-Hatta Airport. Pilgrims returning to Indonesia are also required to abide by quarantine policy set by the National COVID-19 Task Force. Are there going to be exceptions and exemptions? They asked for this before, and they were told no. Is that going to happen? We'll have to wait and see. Okay, it is going to rain. I was going to go up on the roof, but yeah, if you can see the clouds in the back here and the ones in the front, wow. We'll see if I can get this done. Japan warns of possible tougher COVID-19 rules on the ease of quasi-emergency. So the Japanese Prime Minister, Fumio Kishida, said that he will not hesitate to declare a full-fledged state of emergency if cases continue to escalate in Japan. And this comes at a time when he is formalizing a latter semi-emergency or quasi-emergency state in Okinawa, Yamaguchi, and Hiroshima. As a leading medical expert, warned that Japan is in the mix of a sixth wave. Wow. And Prime Minister Kishida, according to this article, nearly lost his cool at a doorstop interview on Thursday amid intense questioning from reporters as he faced massive pressure with the case count on the brink of spiraling out of control. Okay, and happening all over the world, except, surprisingly, in Indonesia. Our numbers are going up, but nowhere near out of control at this point. On Thursday, Japan recorded 4,475 cases, a figure that has not been seen since September 18th, and it was 1.7 times that of the number on Wednesday and 8.7 times the number just a week ago. And the public is not happy with the U.S. military because they're blaming the COVID-19 protocols and the increase on bad behavior from the U.S. military. Apparently, when the U.S. military arrive, they take a test, a mandatory test, but there are lapses, including reports of maskless socializing outside of camp premises, and that's led to Foreign Minister Hayashi to stress in a call to the U.S. Secretary of State Blinken, that the U.S. troops must take thorough measures to follow along with all of the protocols in Japan. And this is not the first time the U.S. military has been under pressure from foreign governments for bad behavior. This happened back in June and July in Korea when the U.S. military was reprimanded for wandering around outside without mask and doing things they were not supposed to do. So Prime Minister Kishida is trying to stay out of a diplomatic problem by explicitly blaming the military bases for the surge, but the Okinawa governor and the Yamaguchi governor have both been a little more forthright. Japan has been able to keep its cases low since September, like December, but loopholes have allowed the entry of the more contagious Omicron variant in, as well as peak travel and merrymaking during the New Year period. And these have been cited as reasons for the recent surge. And what is a quasi-emergency? I was wondering myself. A quasi-emergency is when prefecture authorities can ask businesses to shorten operating hours and ban in-sale alcohol consumption. Not mess with the alcohol consumption. And according to Dr. Toshio Nakagawa, who heads the Japan Medical Association, he said Japan is already in a sixth wave and warned of a surge beyond expectations. And it's been calling on the government to avoid dilly-dallying, I love that word, to take preemptive curbs. He said, if infections spread explosively, the number of severely ill will inevitably increase, and medical institutions may not be able to cope. Hear the thunder? And what is happening in Thailand? Thailand raises COVID-19 alert level due to Omicron spread. And so on Thursday, Thailand raised its COVID alert level to 4 from 3. And moving it up to 4 is a pretext for possible measures that could follow, including closing high-risk areas and placing restrictions on domestic travel or on public gatherings. According to the Permanent Secretary of the Health Ministry, Thailand has entered a new wave of infections where new cases will be rising fast. And on Thursday, case number is 5,775, a 48% rise of the previous day and nearly double the number on January 1st. And Thailand has vaccinated about 69.1% of the estimated 72 million people in the country with 2 doses, but only 10.9% have received booster shots. So not looking good for Thailand right now. And some more on Thailand and more runners. Wow, runners are in the news everywhere. Search for 6 more infected tourists who did not wait for results. So the Koh Chang district authorities are seeking help from the police in finding 6 infected foreigners who did a runner. They came in on the Test and Go program. They had the test, and instead of waiting for their results, they, according to hotel people, checked out in a hurry and split. Where did they split to? Nobody knows. And what happened with their test? They tested positive, these 6 people. Now, the authorities don't know if they were a group or not, but they listed the 6 people here in public media and asked for help in finding them. And according to the district deputy chief, He said that he suspects that they did the runner in order to avoid compulsory quarantine, and he said they could be in Pattaya or in Bangkok. And so this is why countries have to get tough on this stuff, because people just don't follow the rules. And what about schools in Bali? Although Omicron cases appear, high school, vocational high school, PTM, that's face-to-face learning, continues. So the governor's been taking a pretty laid-back attitude towards the Omicron variant, and he's asked the Balinese people not to panic but to obey health protocols. And he assured everyone that all community activities, even international activities that take place in Bali, will not be affected by the issue of the Omicron variant, which, by the way, has not been found here yet as of Friday. He also said the issue of the Omicron variant does not affect and will not affect the entry-exit process of tourists either through airports or seaports. Everything is normal, he said. The important thing is that tourists are also disciplined in implementing health protocols. And meantime, face-to-face learning, which is called PTM, in SMI, SMK, and SLB schools, those are all high school levels, throughout Bali, continues as planned. The head of the Bali Province Education, Youth and Sports Agency, Ikutut Ngurah Rai Wibawa, said that 100% of face-to-face learning has been going on since last Monday and will continue to be so. That 100% face-to-face learning includes carrying out 6 hours of study a day, that's normal. And he added PTM is not affected by infected tourists, that's a good one, with the Omicron variant after returning from vacation. So those Surabaya people we were talking about before. And he said that schools will continue working on 100% 6-hour-a-day basis until the virus is found in a school setting. In that case, he said, PTM activities will be temporarily suspended until the situation is completely recovered. And in school, in addition to 6 hours, there is a break rest time in the middle of lesson for 20 minutes in the middle of the day. Recess activities are carried out by staying within the educational unit environment. Canteen is not allowed to open. Students have to bring their own food and drinks. And what about the airport and domestic tourists? How is that going? Christmas and New Year brought blessings to Ngurah Rai Airport and Bali tourism. The airport's general manager, Harry Sicado, said that Ngurah Rai saw 406,682 departures and arrivals during the Christmas and New Year holiday, specifically from December 17th to January 4th, and that represents a 56% increase over the same period a year ago. And he added that he's optimistic that they're going to continue to see this go on. And the actual number of tourists during the period was not yet determined because a large number traveled to Bali from Java via ferry. And international tourists still waiting and no rush. Time for a wrap-up and update, or update and wrap-up. Okay, mandatory quarantine is now officially 7 and 10. I talked about it last time saying that, but circular hadn't come out yet. It has come out now, and so it is 7 and 10. And what about those numbers that I was talking about before? Jakarta records 271 Omicron cases, 40 local transmissions. These are new ones. So the numbers are going up, and they are predominantly imported cases. Jakarta's deputy governor said the increase in COVID-19 cases is caused by year-end and holiday activities, okay, as was expected. And so we're not getting anything new. In fact, the numbers are not surging yet like people were afraid of, but that does not mean that it won't happen. Because, this came out yesterday, experts warn of upcoming third wave as Omicron spreads. So experts are saying that Omicron variant is more widespread than the figures show, and that a third wave is quite possibly coming in the near future. A critical pathologist from Sebelas Maret University said that the true scale of the spread of Omicron variant is not known yet because it's obscured by the lack of COVID-19 testing, especially the PCR test. And so he expects that there are more cases than we currently have. Okay, that's not a surprise. Mpak Budiman from Australia, we've talked about many times, said that Indonesia should see a much higher transmission in the upcoming surge compared with the Delta-fueled second wave between June and July last year. And Mardika from Udayana University agreed with Dickey. However, he said that the upcoming wave was unlikely to put a heavy strain on Indonesia's healthcare system, similar to that when we had the Delta-fueled surge. He said we won't see as many fatalities or hospitalizations in the upcoming wave compared with the second wave because Omicron cases are less severe symptoms. And he said there's significantly more people who have been vaccinated or acquired immunity compared with last year. And so we're just going to have to wait and see how this works out, as I often say. Well, here's a message that I recorded yesterday. It was from yesterday, and so let's take a listen to this about what happened to somebody who came here, got stuck in testing positive. And here is a little warning from a person who was triple vaxxed, and this comes from Jackie Pomeroy's Facebook site. I entered Indonesia with all negative tests and tested several times before boarding and flying. I did the 10-day quarantine in Jakarta, got sick after 4 days, tested positive on the 9th day, was transferred to a government facility, the C1 Hotel, at my expense by ambulance for another 10-day quarantine. I'm being checked every day by either a GP or a nurse. They are testing which variant, and I should know within 3 to 5 days. If it's Omicron, they've told me that I will have to be transferred to a hospital and get 2 negative PCRs before I can be released. I have now been in quarantine for 14 days and will get tested again on day 20. So, this is one of the possibilities if you come into Indonesia or Thailand or a lot of other places now. With Omicron spreading so rapidly, there's a chance that you're going to have it. You're going to get tested for it if you go into a place where you've got to do a 10-day quarantine. And you may, like this unfortunate fellow, test positive even though you've done everything right. And then you're going to be paying for a vacation that you don't want in a quarantine facility or in a hospital. So that's just something to think about before you travel. Okay, and so that's the updates. I want to get ready and to start filming nasi goreng, and I want some nasi goreng. I'm hungry, have not eaten, and it is 11:30 in the morning. What have we got? We got the good news. Okay, we're going to have Ogoh-Ogohs in the parade. Yes, one of the things I did not mention in the Ogoh-Ogoh segment was that Banjars are only permitted to have one Ogoh-Ogoh. The airport, I don't know. I just cover this for fun. Maybe it'll happen. I don't know. We'll see what happens. We could be on the verge of a third wave here, or we could not. It's hard to tell. With the rest of the world, with numbers spiking up because of Omicron, I don't see why we wouldn't get it. But the government says that they're prepared for it, and I hope that they are. We'll just have to wait and see. And for people that send messages in here saying Bali is closed, it's not closed. It's open. Just no international flights coming in. But you can get in, as I say, every video through Jakarta if you really want to come. And if you want to come and stay for a while, because I wouldn't come and pay for the visa, the B211, if I was just going to be here for a week. If you want to come to Bali, yeah, come to Bali, but just quit saying that it's closed, because it's not closed. And thanks for the comments and discussions that people have gotten started. I appreciate especially the updates on what's going on in Australia and the UK and around the world. We're at the end. If you found this useful, please give it a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed and you would like to subscribe or consider subscribing, there's my little message every week. Thanks, I appreciate it. For those of you who are new to this channel, updates are every Wednesday and Sunday, and food videos start next week. Thanks for viewing. Stay safe. Be kind to someone today, and I will see you on Wednesday.